It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime. My best friend Mike, my girlfriend Sarah, and I had just graduated from college, and we wanted to celebrate with a camping adventure before the real world swallowed us whole. I'm Jake, by the way. Nice to meet you, though I wish I were telling you a happier story. We'd heard about Oleander Acres, a quiet RV park in Mission, Texas, tucked away in the Rio Grande Valley. The reviews promised a peaceful escape, with 23 lush acres and sweeping vistas of South Texas. It was affordable, serene, and perfect for 3 20-somethings looking to unplug. Little did we know, our trip would become a nightmare we'd carry for the rest of our lives. We hit the road from Austin, our beat-up SUV packed with camping gear, snacks, and a playlist of our favorite songs. The drive was long but fun. Mike belting out off-key lyrics, Sarah laughing at his antics, and me stealing glances at her in the rearview mirror. As we crossed into South Texas, the landscape flattened, dotted with scrubby trees and bursts of wildflowers. By the time we reached Oleander Acres, the sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air was warm, filled with the hum of crickets and the faint scent of mesquite. We checked in at the small office where a cheerful sign welcomed us with flowers. The manager, Linda, handed us a map and pointed us to Site 47, near the edge of the campground, close to a dense thicket of woods. "Quiet spot," she said with a smile. "Perfect for you young folks." We thanked her and drove to our site, the gravel crunching under our tires. The campground was sparsely populated, a few RVs scattered here and there, but it felt like we had the place to ourselves. "This place is amazing," Sarah said, stretching her arms as she took in the view. The stars were already peeking out, bright against the darkening sky. I can feel the stress melting away. "Yeah, it's perfect," I agreed, hammering in a tent peg. "Let's get the fire going and make some s'mores." Mike, always the clown, grinned. "And tell some ghost stories. I heard this place is haunted." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Mike, don't start. I don't need any more reasons to be scared of the dark." But he leaned in, lowering his voice. "Seriously, I read online there's a ghost of a little girl who shows up at night. They say she's missing an eye." I laughed it off. "Nice try, but I'm not buying it. Let's focus on having fun." We spent the evening around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and swapping stories from our college days. The stars were unreal, like a blanket of diamonds spread across the sky. It was peaceful, almost too peaceful. As the fire crackled, I noticed Sarah glancing into the darkness, her brow furrowed. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded, but her voice was tight. "Just feels like someone's watching us." "It's just the woods," I said, squeezing her hand. "Nothing out there but crickets and maybe a raccoon or two." Around 10 p.m., we crawled into our tent. Sarah and I shared a double sleeping bag, while Mike sprawled out on the other side. The night was quiet, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. I drifted off, lulled by the sounds of the wilderness. Sometime in the middle of the night, Sarah shook me awake. "Jake," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Do you hear that?" I blinked, groggy. "Hear what?" "Someone's calling my name. It's like a whisper coming from outside." I listened, but all I heard was the wind rustling through the trees. "I don't hear anything, babe. Maybe it was a dream." She shook her head, her eyes wide. It was so clear. "Sarah, Sarah." She mimicked the soft, eerie tone. I tried to reassure her, but a chill crept up my spine. We lay back down, but I could tell She was still on edge. I stayed awake for a while, listening to every sound, the creak of branches, the distant hoot of an owl. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. The next morning, the sun was bright, and the unease from the night before seemed silly. We decided to explore the area, hiking through the trails that wound through the woods. The scenery was stunning. Wildflowers in every color, birds darting between trees. But as we ventured deeper, we stumbled across something odd. An old, abandoned RV, half swallowed by vines and dust. It looked like it had been there for decades, its windows cracked and its paint peeling. "That's weird," Mike said, peering inside. "Why would someone just leave this here?" Sarah shivered, wrapping her arms around herself. "This place gives me the creeps. Let's keep moving." We continued our hike, but the image of that RV stuck with me. It felt wrong, like it didn't belong. That evening, back at our campsite, Mike brought up the ghost story again. "So about that little girl ghost, I did some digging online." Sarah groaned. "Mike, seriously, stop it." But I was curious. "What'd you find?" He pulled out his phone, scrolling through a web page. Back in 1985, a girl named Maria was murdered here at Oleander Acres. She was only 10. They found her body near the picnic area with one eye gouged out. The killer, a drifter, was never caught. Since then, campers have reported seeing her ghost, always between 3 and 4 a.m., always missing an eye. Sarah's face paled. "That's awful, but it's just a story, right?" Mike shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe we'll find out tonight." That night, none of us slept well. We kept the flashlight close, jumping at every sound. Around 2 a.m., Mike got up to use the restroom. He was gone for maybe a minute when he came barreling back into the tent, his face ashen. "I saw her," he gasped. "The ghost girl. She was standing by the picnic table." "What?" I sat up, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" She was pale, with long dark hair, and one eye was just gone. An empty socket. She stared at me, then pointed to the woods and vanished. Sarah was trembling. "We need to leave now." I tried to stay calm. "Mike, are you sure you weren't half asleep? Maybe it was a shadow or something." "I know what I saw," he snapped. "She was real." We stepped outside, shining our flashlights around the campsite. Nothing. The campground was silent, the air heavy with tension. "Let's just get through the night," I said. "We paid for 3 nights. We're not letting some ghost story ruin our trip." Sarah wasn't convinced, but she nodded reluctantly. We crawled back into the tent, but sleep was impossible. Every rustle, every snap of a twig felt like a threat. At 3 a.m., it happened again. A soft, eerie lullaby drifted through the air, sung in a child's voice. My blood ran cold. "Do you hear that?" I whispered. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Mike grabbed the flashlight and we unzipped the tent. There she was, Maria, standing just outside, her form translucent in the moonlight. Her white dress was tattered, stained with dark patches. Her one eye locked onto us, filled with an unreadable emotion. Then she turned and glided toward the woods, beckoning us to follow. "We should stay here," Sarah whispered, clutching my arm, but something compelled us to follow. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something else. We grabbed our flashlights and trailed behind her, the forest swallowing us in darkness. The air grew colder, the trees looming like silent sentinels. Maria stopped in front of the abandoned RV we'd seen earlier. She pointed to it, then vanished. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. "What does she want us to see?" I asked. Cautiously, we approached the RV. The door was ajar, creaking as we pushed it open. Inside, it was like stepping into a time capsule. Old clothes, canned food, a dusty sleeping bag. On a small table, we found a photo of a couple smiling happily. Next to it was a journal. Sarah picked it up, her hands shaking. She opened it to the last entry and read aloud. October 22nd, 2010. Something's wrong here. We've been hearing strange noises at night, and I think someone is watching us. James thinks I'm paranoid, but I saw a girl last night standing by our RV. She had only one eye. I'm scared. My stomach dropped. "That's Michelle Butler's journal," I said. "The couple from the news. They went missing from this campground in 2019. Their story had been all over the headlines. James and Michelle Butler, a couple from New Hampshire, found buried on a Texas beach after camping at Padre Island, NBC News." "What happened to them?" Sarah whispered. Before we could process it, a twig snapped behind us. We spun around to see a man emerging from the trees, holding a knife. He was tall, disheveled, with wild eyes and a scarred face. His grin was feral, like a predator who'd found his prey. It was him, the drifter who'd killed Maria all those years ago, and maybe the Butlers too. He lunged at us, the knife glinting in the moonlight. Sarah screamed, and I shoved her behind me, fumbling for anything to defend ourselves. But before he could reach us, Maria appeared between us, her form glowing with an otherworldly light. She raised her hand and the man froze, his eyes widening in terror. He let out a guttural scream, clutching his head, and collapsed to the ground, lifeless. Maria turned to us, her one eye filled with sadness. A single tear rolled down her cheek, and then she faded away, leaving us alone in the dark. We stumbled back to our campsite, hearts racing, and called 911. The police arrived at dawn, finding the drifter's body. They identified him as John Doe, a criminal who'd been on the run since the 1980s, wanted for multiple murders. Nearby, they uncovered the remains of James and Michelle Butler, buried in shallow graves, finally bringing closure to their families. We packed up and left Oleander Acres that day, grateful to be alive but forever changed. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory of Maria haunts us. Was she protecting us or warning us? Did her spirit finally find peace? Or does she still linger in those woods, watching over the campground? I don't know. But one thing's for sure, we'll never go camping again.